Hi guys, it's me Gabby from Probaholic, and today I will be reviewing Animal Farm by George Orwell. So this book wasn't on my TBR for this month, but I really wanted to read a classical book, so I just picked this one up because it's kind of short and I've heard great things about it, so I decided to see for myself if it's that good or not. Before diving into this review, I just want to make clear a couple of things. First of all, I am aware that this book was published in 1956, and I'm aware that at that time it was a big deal. It was something like one of a kind, and also I am aware that me reviewing this book is completely different from people reviewing this book 60 years ago. So I'm going to tell you what I think about it from a person living in 2016 and not someone living in 1956. So with those things being said, let's talk about Animal Farm. The first picture we get in this book is, of course, the animal farm. So we have all these animals that are being mistreated by humans. Their master Jones doesn't give them food, rest, enough rewards, and he also sells all their products and even children. So these animals are very unhappy with their situation, and one night one of the animals, the older animals who has a lot of respect, stands up and says, I had a dream that we are going to be free, that we won't be slaves, that there will be no masters, that animals will have a happy life. So from there on, the animals have this idea of being free, of setting up their own society, their rules, and basically being treated a better way. This is the main premise of the book. So we might be wondering why this book is so controversial, why it's one of a kind, and why it's so interesting. I mean, we all read this book about the little pink pig and the cow roaming around the fields, blah blah blah. But this book, the difference is the animals, they represent society. They represent the parts of society, how society is formed, and how humanity is perceived back in 1856. And I say this because personally, I don't believe that all people are cruel or that most people are cruel. I I I don't want to believe that, and I don't believe that. But I do get that this was written like 10 years after the biggest disaster in history, which is the Second World War. So I get where the cruelty comes from. And the animals, which are very different in character, which I liked, like every species had their own trait, their own characteristics, and I like that. And they represent a part or a subgroup of our everyday society. And basically, George Orwell criticizes how our society is formed and who our leaders are, how we have become leaders, and how we are treating the others who are beneath us, like intellectually or with technology, or basically anyone who isn't human. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, and I did enjoy it, but also there are parts that I didn't agree with and that I got frustrated with. So the part that I liked, as I said, I really liked the whole idea of society portrayed as animals, especially the subgroups of our society. Also, I like that every animal had their own thing, something that I could remember them with, and had their own voice in my head. Actually, that could have been the audiobook, but never mind. They had this kind of inner voice that made them interesting and rememberable. I liked the plot line as a whole. I think that from the beginning to the end, he kind of gets his point through. You are able to understand what he wants you to find out, and I think that that's a mission accomplished for him. Another thing that I liked was the idea that we tend to forget a lot of things. We, as human society, we forget that certain things have already happened in history, so we don't prevent them from occurring again. And I think that this book focuses a lot on that, because the animals, especially the ones that aren't that intelligent, they forget that that wasn't true or that has already happened and they know the outcomes. So I did like that aspect of the book, which was said in a very interesting way throughout the whole book. Now to the parts that I didn't enjoy that much. Well, as I said, the humans all being cruel was very drastic for me, because all the humans in this book are portrayed as people who wipe their animals with cruelty, the people who starve their animals, and I don't think that the book means only animals in their farms, but also nature and animals as a whole, and even other people in our lives. I don't believe that every human or that the majority of people are cruel and bad. And I think that I didn't quite get into or didn't quite like was the repetition, because some actions, some things happen so many times, and I understand that George Orwell wants to point that they are happening to us every day and we don't see them. But as a reader, I was intelligible enough to understand that they are repeating, and the fourth time they repeated, I was like, well, yes, I got it. Yes, can we move on? So it was kind of repetitive. As a whole, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I did understand the message, but the point is that I didn't quite get into it or enjoy it, just because the mindset that this book was written with is really different from mine, and in 100 pages I didn't have enough time to transform into this mindset, so I couldn't understand this book as well as I would have liked to. But otherwise, there were some pretty amazing things said in this book that I think hold for societies everywhere and every when, if that makes sense. And I do think that this book should be read by everyone, just because this is one of those books, those books that you should read for yourself and figure out if you like them or not. This is just my personal opinion. I know that some people really love it and some people really hate it, so I'm kind of in the middle. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed reading about pigs, and pigs again.